all the failures we've seen out of Hollywood over the last several years that the media and different companies try to convince us, no, they're not actually failures. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong here. It's kind of impossible to deny that now. With all the high-profile failures and flops that we've seen from some of the biggest IPs in existence, whether it's Star Wars, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, etc. And we continue to see the strategy not be, hey, let's make something that doesn't piss the fans off. Let's actually make something people like. Instead, the strategy is, all you people complaining, you're just toxic fans. And when you have something that's being watched by millions and millions of people, are there going to be 1, 2, 3 people that are probably like legitimately insane or take it way too far, like a death threat or something like that? You know what? Probably in the millions and millions of people watching, every once in a while, you're going to have a handful of those, 0.0001% probably. Yep. The thing is, you're trying to say that 99% of all the other people that don't like the show, they're toxic too because they don't have valid criticisms. They're just mad that these things have women and black people in them. And Variety put out this big article talking not only about how, toxic fandom's really to blame for these shows flopping, but also illustrating how scared the studios are of said toxic fan base. It really is sad. And I also want to point out, because I see Danky in the chat, I obviously made a mistake when I labeled Adam B. Very as someone that he wasn't. Maybe the reason I get them so fucking confused is because when you look all the way down here, Mark Malkin, which I think is the guy that I may have falsely identified as Adam B. Very, Mark Malkin contributed to the story with Adam B. Very. So maybe that is one of the reasons that I get these people, confused. So it's my bad. It's my bad. On the 28th of August, Amanda Stenberg, the lead of the Star Wars series, The Acolyte, posted an 8.5-minute video to her Instagram stories about Lucasfilm's abrupt decision not to pick up the show for the second season, just a month after the season 1 finale. It's not a huge shock for me, Stenberg said. Since the series announced in 2020, she continued, we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us. She had to make sure she got all the buzzwords, and she did it without cue cards or a script.
Yeah.
Good job, Amanda. Congratulations. As far as we can
tell. Yeah.
In other words, The Acolyte. The Acolyte was the latest high-profile target of toxic fandom, the catch-all term for when fan criticisms curdle from good faith dissatisfaction into a relentlessly negative, often bigoted online campaign against either the project or its stars or creative leaders. In a franchise economy increasingly dependent upon established audience devotion to drive the bottom line, the threat of toxic fandoms poisoning that enthusiasm has become a seemingly intractable headache for almost every studio, and it's only getting worse. The takeaway I have from this is that you're saying, yeah, it's very important to us that people not actually think, that people just consume product and get excited to consume next product. And when people criticize said thing, that's very threatening to our bottom line. That to me is in layman's terms what that paragraph actually means.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It makes no sense at all to address this unless it's becoming a real problem for you. And your response is, you can't have it both ways, and that's what keeps happening. And the Acolyte, to me, is like the straw that broke the camel's back. They're like, these toxic fans are just a minority. They're just a vocal minority. They have no power whatsoever, but also they're the reason that this whole thing got canceled. Their vitriol and their hatred is the reason the show doesn't exist. And it's like, what is it? Because if we're just a small vocal minority, we should have no bearing on whether or not your show gets canceled or exists or not. The only thing that talks to these companies is money and viewership. And if nobody's watching your show, then it has nothing to do with toxic fans. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And to think that your PR machine, all of the studios, all of the commercials, all of the YouTubers and TikTokers and everybody that you have, that you pay or you give access to your stuff, can't outshine and like speak louder than the people that are dissatisfied says a lot about the state of the entertainment industry right now. Like the fact that they're doing this is the way I described it is they're spitting in your face and begging you for your money. Like, oh, these toxic fans, we're so bad and we're so scared of these guys. But also, you know, now we have to change the way that we're doing stories and movies and making shows because of these toxic fans, because we get so much blowback from them. Fuck off.
Yeah, they do say that in this article. Here we go. Perhaps the greatest irony of this phenomenon is the disproportionate impact these toxic fandoms have relative to their actual number. The vast majority in any fandom are casual fans, says John Van Kitters, VP of Star Trek brand development. been a rough couple years for you. The number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. And then those who come after things they espouse to love with venom are a really, really tiny subset in an already smaller subset of fandom. I agree with parts of this. It's true that in general, like the general audience, not going to be super hardcore and dedicated. However, the hardcores are very important to you because they are the ones who are going to be there, rain or shine, caring about your thing. They are going to be the ones who, if they like it, it's going to generate excitement for the more casual people. And the idea of those who come after things they espouse to love with venom, that's just projection, right? Those are people that care deeply about your product and hate what you're doing to it. And I can imagine someone who's involved in Star Trek, maybe you've seen a lot of that over the past decade because of how badly you guys have fucked up that entire franchise.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, you're supposed to be the guy that's been here since the 90s. The only reason that Star Trek, the original series, got more than one season was because Gene Roddenberry went, hey, they're going to cancel the show, and reached out to the fans and said, if you want this show to not get canceled, you need to send in fan mail and fan letters. Here's the address for it. Here's where you can send the mail. And they got so many fucking letters from hardcore fans that said, we love this show, do not cancel it. They gave it another 2 seasons. We would not even have Star Trek to this day if it wasn't for those same toxic fans that are now saying, yo, what are you guys doing to Star Trek? We don't like it. Stop doing this. It's so, the idea is so fucking wild to me that you're going to ignore how some of these franchises even existed to this day. Like, you're going to ignore how many people flocked to Star Trek and flocked to Star Wars and flocked to Marvel, you know, and supported these companies back in the day when they weren't popular and when they didn't need to exist, and there wasn't a giant subset of people that you could try to pander to get to watch this stuff, and then pretend that those people are not the people that you need to keep this stuff alive. Because the other part of it is, like, and I said this the other day, they're the ones that are spending money. Casual fans aren't going to go spend $150 on a lightsaber. They're not going to go buy the books and the supplemental stuff. They're not going to go buy tons of merch. They might buy a Star Wars t-shirt here and there, but they're not the ones out here buying all of your shit and going and buying box sets and Blu-rays and DVDs and all of this stuff and consuming what they can. Those are the hardcore fans that are doing that, and that's where all your money's coming from. And for you to spit in their face and slap them across the mouth and be like, don't worry, these other people are the people that we're talking to now. These are the people that'll support us. They don't care enough about this to spend money. They'll move on to the next franchise. All those fuckers that signed the Acolyte thing to get it back on the air, they will give up and move on to something else as soon as something else pops up that they can write fanfic about and masturbate by themselves in their room too. So, I don't know, man.
And then they even like provide these examples, which we can fact check these pretty easily. Sometimes toxic fandoms behave reactively. A House of the Dragon episode featured 2 female characters kissing, and an episode of The Last of Us focusing on a gay couple were both review bombed. Let's get this straight. The reason that in season 2 there was backlash surrounding Rhaenyra and Mysaria kissing was not because it was a gay kiss.
Nope.
Because in season 1 there was also a gay kiss between 2 characters who in the source material had a relationship.
Yep.
The problem was with who Rhaenyra kissed and when. The fact that she trusted Mysaria, the fact that it was just so out of nowhere. It was highly criticized. And look, in the source material in Fire and Blood, Rhaenyra is like reported to have had sex with Lena. So it's not as if like just the nature of that would have a big impact in the same way that Kiss in season 1 didn't. Like, that's why people were upset. And then when you get to the gay episode for Last of Us, guess why people were upset about that? Because you have a handful of episodes to adapt a video game that people love. And you took a character who was, when you look at all the different hints and clues, was gay in the game, but it was a very kind of small, under the radar thing, in the closet thing, if you were to say. And you make an entire episode focused on those two characters, completely departed from the characters who are part of the story. That was why people were highly critical of those things. So like there is some context surrounding this shit. Why wasn't there a massive review bombing for House of the Dragon season 1 episode 4 when Laenor and Joffrey are kissing? Because those characters are together in the source material. Like, what do you want?
It's never been a problem when it's the source material and it's part of the story and that kind of stuff has been established. It's always when they deviate. And yeah, like you said, leaving out context of the actresses being like, yeah, I don't know, we just felt like in that moment it was the right thing to do. And it's like, what? Why don't you just stick to the fucking source material like we all asked and wanted in the first place? Like, go ahead.
Well, unlike the problem was, if you work up to it in a way that makes sense, I wouldn't really even have a problem with it. The problem is, like, at that moment, there was a lot of criticism in general for how much Rhaenyra was trusting Mysaria overall to even like keep her counsel in this way and stuff like that. Like, there was a lot of criticism between the way that character came into her trust. And then for that to happen out of nowhere, like, yeah, there was a ton of criticism for it. Not because it was a gay scene in Game of Thrones.
Nope.
Like,
really
but overall, it's just another pathetic effort by the media to gaslight everyone into thinking the reason these shows are failing couldn't possibly be because they suck. Has to be because of the fans.